Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Happy Canada Day to my fellow Canadians. We are going to look today at the day one results post-ban of Standard. So we had one MTGO league, so we can start seeing some deck lists of kind of folks playing new strats, updated strats, revisiting old strats kind of way. This video will be for Standard best of 3. We do need to wait for some of the data to come in on the latter data, like from Untapped, to get more of a wholesome kind of view. So small sample size, but some folks were already asking yesterday for some deck lists. So this will give you an idea, just things to get started as you kind of go through. Notably, there is rotation in a month as well. So some cards like Shieldred and others will be planned to rotate. But we will look to kind of give you a view, see what's happening, stuff like that. Yesterday I played Rakdos Lizards in best of 1, had a clean 5-0, just kind of messing around. Deck felt pretty solid. I don't know how it translates to best of 3 just yet, but something I wanted to explore a little bit more, but seems to have a lot of tools now and is not getting kind of outpaced. But we'll be back for best of 1 video and then the other formats as we kind of move forward. So looking at Untapped, we're still getting some of the solid information. Like the Boros deck is just a classification for the mono red deck that was playing the like Boros Dragon Omen card that was skewing it being Boros, but there's no other white cards. You can't cast the dragons just for the deal 5. Still seeing Izzet Prowess Cori kind of come into here, but notable cards that we're seeing like Dimir's kind of probably the top dog looking at it right now, but we'll see a couple other decks. So from the MTGO challenge, all these deck lists I'll link in the video. I know MTG decks isn't the most visually stimulating look, but until we get the information on Untapped, like the visual view of this is not the nicest either, in terms of just hovering over cards. When you don't have 4 ofs, it kind of gets over and we can't hover over. So gonna kind of go from the list view here. So Dimir Midrange won it. They went 10-0. This is Azza, and this is a deck that didn't get hit. Card that potentially could have been on like the radar for potential ban, just to kind of even it out. Was Enduring Curiosity, but this is probably the safest go-to bet in terms of decks to pick up, just given the strength of the deck. We're seeing Cecil being played in some numbers in the deck here. Just gives you another nice 1-drop. Generally, folks don't necessarily want to block this given the death touch. So it's a great target to cheat into play Kaito, which the deck is playing a full 4 of. We have the usual things: Tishana's Tidebinder, Fairy Mastermind, Spyglass Siren, the Drowner. But an interesting card here is Saiba Cryptomancer, 2 mana 0/1. It is a ninja, so it works with Kaito's plus, one of the few ninjas we have in the format. So backup comes into play. You put a counter on target creature. It gains the ability to end the turn, so hexproof. So it is a protection effect for a creature. You can put a counter on it. In and of itself, it's a hexproof that stacks with Kaito's emblems, which is kind of cool. It also sings a couple of Shieldred's Edict, great in the Kaito mirrors, just being able to hit their Kaito as well. So we have that kind of configuration. Seeing cut downs, go for the throats, 2 Phantom Interference. Mana base, you see 3 Soulstone, 2 Restless Reef as utility lands in the deck. We have Duress for hand hate, some cheap counters in Negate and Disdainful Stroke. Gix Command, just flexible all-around card sweeper, mid-rangey kind of effect. Anoint for cheap removal, Preacher for kind of the mid-rangey battles. If aggressive decks, it kind of blocks well, but seeing more kind of tempo-oriented main. Preachers to kind of grind outside, Tishana's for triggered activated abilities, and Ghost Vacuums for graveyard hate. Another deck that's seeing a return, and I think gets better just given the shift in some of the decks that phased out, was Mono White Tokens. With this deck just kind of auto lost at times to Omniscience. If you didn't hit like Rest in Peace, they just went over the top. But we're seeing a slight update. We see Caretaker's Talent as the engine. Elspeth was a card that played beautifully in the shell, but Voice of Victory is another nice card here. So Voice fills in the curve at 2, lets you be a little bit more proactive, helps against the counter spells that you typically see against this deck. Things like Disdainful Stroke, hitting your big stuff, negates, kind of stopping you from landing a key card. The tokens also trigger Caretaker's Talent every turn, which is nice. Overlord of the Mistmoors, Innocence and Voice play nicely together, drawing you cards. And then some Bezos. Bezos, I think, has a lot of utility post ban, just very impactful creature. Helps you stabilize against aggro in the grindier matchups, can give you card advantage, can help you with hit like virtual lands in terms of treasure tokens if your opponent's on head on mana. Lay down arms is cheap removal, Sunfall, Day of Judgment as the Swift tier. Split, not Swift. Ultima, probably not as needed now, just given that you are likely not running into cori-steels as much. If you do see an uptick, you can substitute Sunfall for Optima, but the Roots deck, stuff like that, you might want the Sunfall more. You're going to have the Sunken Citadel, Phantom Port, Demolition Field as your utility lands. Destroy Evil, flexible removal, Stonebrain for combo hate, just take out some key cards. In the grindier matchups, you have another Overlord along with Elspeth. Aggressive decks, you have Authority, temporary lockdown. Against the low to the ground decks, Bezas just kind of help you stabilize, and full 4 Rest in Peace to deal graveyard hate. I remember when this card was like 10, 15 bucks, 99 cents now. Izzet Cauldron. So this got from Dookie Trouser 7-2. This is the Paulo Vito de Malarosa PT deck. I think a slight update just with Draconautics Engineer in the main. So this deck's kind of engine is Agatha Soul Cauldron. Basically putting counters, so you put counters on creatures, you exile creatures to kind of get an Exodia style creature in terms of all the abilities. So with VV, it makes it so any creature you control counters on it can add the mana. You have looting effects, Kitsa, Tursa, all kind of loot. Basically, you can make a very large creature, give it the Thrill Seeker ability, and then just sack it to deal damage. Marauding Mako is another way to draw discard. Extra combats with FOMO, and then Draconautics Engineer is nice because you can exhaust and then use like haste or the dragon mode. I believe there was the update. I think you could still only use it once, but these abilities still are usable under Cauldron, if I'm not mistaken. Flood Maws is cheap disruption, Spell Pierce. You have more looting with Glacial Dragon Hunt and Winter Night Stories, and the Prophet's Edict gets the stack counters, playing really nicely with the Fling style effect. These are all nice mana sinks as well, because if you get a big VV, just Winter Night Stories draws you a bunch of cards and kind of keeps the churn going. Quarry Mountain Monastery as a utility land. Graveyard Hate with Ghost Vacuum, Spell Pierce, cheap disruption. Unable to Scream for kind of like the big threats. Sheoldred, stuff like that. Fire Magic as a flexible sweeper. Barrage for Bezas, Kaitos, big things. Change the equation for low to the ground decks or big red-green decks. Disdainful Stroke, cheap counter along the negate. More engineers if you want to like haste stuff, grindier matchups. Scorching Shot for 5 damage removal, and then the grindier matchups, you have Curiosity as well. Orzhov Pixie. So 6-3. Hopeless Nightmare is gone, but we have Tiny Bones joins up. So trying to do its best impression here. So it forces the discard, and then whenever a legendary creature comes into play, any number of target players each mill a card and lose a life. So the damage isn't necessarily there from stacking, but you can still get some pings going. Still have your Momentum Breaker, Nowhere to Run package, removal of Get Lost, Go for the Throat Cutdown, and then we see the full Cecil package here. Nurturing Pixie, Sun Pearl, Kieran as your bounce effects, some Preachers, and then Dark Confidant. Bobbert himself is in here. Your curve's fairly low, just 1 and 2 drops, with the exception of Preacher, so hope is to not take too much damage from these spells. It allows you to flip your Cecil faster. Conceals Flanker, Graveyard Hate, some life gain, just flexible all-around card. Beza for the more aggressive matchups. Lauren, Artifact Enchantment Hate, Temporary Lockdown. Very good against like the low-to-ground decks, and you can start doing the effects where you put a bunch of things like Momentum Breakers, Tiny Bones, stuff like that underneath the lockdown. You pick up your lockdown, you get all those ETBs again. Duress for Hand Hate, Elish Norn for your opponent's ETB style effects. We have McWing Sauce 6-2, and this is with an update on Golgari Midrange. So Llanowar Elf, only one Mosswood Dread Knight. Some interesting one-ofs in the deck. Demon Wall plays very nicely with Unholy Annex. We have the Innkeeper's Talent, Vraska's Betrayal combo. How this works, if you have Talent on level 3, you can ultimate Vraska right away and poison kill your opponent. Just, it's like a greatest hits of Golgari bangers. Scavenger Region as a sweeper, Karsi Revenant comes back from your graveyard, helps you stabilize, Glissa locks down the ground, Archfiend closes out the game pretty quick, Sentinel. So Storm Brood's a flexible card, Artifact Enchantment and Removal, all stable to 1. Cheap removal and cut down, go for the throat, some sweepers kind of mixed in. Sideboard just has like discard, flexible removal options like Heritage Reclamation, Frillback can take out graveyards, Artifact Enchantment hate. Against heavy removal decks, you have Thrun, some more graveyard hate with Ghost Vacuum, Sweeper and Regent. Maelstrom Pulse, just catch all removal, Outrageous Robbery for the mid-rangey control decks. Nissa for the Grandier matchups, Archfiend helps close out games quick, Shieldred for the Grandier matchups. And then against blue-black, you can bring in Sword of Once in Future, giving your creatures protection and getting you some value when you deal damage. So we have Azorius Tempo, Al MTG. This is really a return to blue-white Oculus or blue-white Mentor. So Monastery Mentor hasn't seen play in a while, but Picklock Prankster, you have one of Kiora and Oculus. So kind of moving away from the Jeskai, just going cleaner into terms of your mana base. But you're using things like Founding, Slight, just a bunch of ways to kind of draw, discard, and then Helping Hand Recommission to bring back your powerful 3-drops, whether it be Oculus, Kiora, or the Mentor, like we mentioned. Just ways to kind of churn, fill your library, cheap interaction, card draw mixed in. Sage of the Skies. If you're it's easy to kind of flurry in this deck. You have cheap cards. And then you can kind of go from there. So you can bring it back as another threat, gives you multiple lifelink bodies. Lockdown for the aggressive decks, cheap disruption, disenchant for like graveyard hate. Just ways to kind of deal with common hate pieces. Similar with Lauren. Elspeth's Might for cheap removal, 3 steps just as an additional counter. You can copy your big things too, which is nice. Exercise, just flexible all around removal, graveyard hate, and then cheap counters. Then we have from Zompafatafu at 5-2, they are playing the Yuna Naya Overlord kind of package. So this was from the PT as well, I believe, or a variant of it. Actually, no, this one's slightly different. The other one was on like Screaming Nemesis, a little bit lower to the ground. So this one here has got Terras, draw discards, puts cards into your graveyard, hits you enchantments. Esper Origins fills your yard. You have Joshua, draw, discard, another nice one to flip here in terms of its set backside. 4/4 flying lifelink, deals damage, gains you some life, then reanimates stuff. Yuna is the big thing here where you're able to bring back Overlords, so Mistmoors, Boiler Bridges, and then this one here is actually not on the green Overlord. So it's pretty much a heavier Boros with splashes of green in it, as opposed to Overlord of the Hauntwoods. You have Summon Beholder as some card advantage engines as well. FOMO gets you extra combats. You have cheap removal, Get Lost, Torch Tower, Dredger's Insight helps you fill your graveyard, gains you life over time, which is kind of sweet. Summon Knight's Round is a top end threat. Just kind of closes the game out, helps you stabilize. Sheltered is cheap removal against the red-based aggressive decks, damage-based decks. Fire Magic, Sweepers, Get Lost, cheap removal. Clarion Conquer is an interesting one. How many, for example, in Historic, this shuts down mono green, shuts down the Sorin decks. There's a lot of decks this has a lot of utility against. Not certain what, I guess against the VV decks, it's pretty good. Against mono white, it dies to most like Sweepers. Against Dimir, is shut down. Kaito. So it has some utility there. Ghost Vacuum for graveyard hate, and then Day of Judgment. Just since you're bringing stuff back from the graveyard, you don't care as much of your stuff dying. And the last deck's not from these challenge, but I was trying to look through and tap to see kind of what hung around, stayed around. This one was at 58%. I don't know why it's not showing. But it's just Jeskai Dragons. This possibly could be a deck that gets revisited. There's a lot of Jeskai going around best of one right now. You have access to obviously the Shiko package. You have reasonable interaction early with temporary lockdown. Rediscover the Way, stock up, helps you keep your hand full. Between Sweepers, just kind of top end bounce. You have Helix to kind of stabilize your life early. Get Lost, Dispelling Exhale. You can play Torch Tower. There's a lot of options in terms of 1-mana interaction. This one's playing a little bit more graveyard removal in the main. and then you can kind of pivot more mid-rangey. Overlords, Elish Norns, Tishanas against heavier draw decks. You have Fairy Mastermind, cheap counters, you have flexible removal. This deck does present a lot of different options that you could potentially take, with things like Omni going away, with mono red not being as present in the format. It might provide a little bit more utility in those matchups, but another deck to kind of consider as you kind of go forward. That is it. I will be back with the arena ladder stats as soon as we get it available, but like I said, wanted to get some decks out there. Good luck all those playing, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.